Yo, what's going on YouTube? I'm Sue, and in this video, I want to talk about Etheria Restart. More specifically, the EWS Invitational that was this past weekend, which is basically kind of like their Season 0 World Championship. And I also want to talk about how I'm feeling about the game now 7 weeks or so after launch. So let's get started by talking about the EWS Invitational, which if you didn't see, I highly recommend you go back and watch it on the official Etheria Restart YouTube channel under the live tab. I think that this event was just incredible. It had such an insane amount of polish and professionalism applied to it for a very new event, for a first time event for these guys. I was not expecting this event to be of the quality that it actually was. It had dynamic camera angles, very good visibility in terms of the on-screen graphics. It was very easy for me to follow along. The casting from both Alexandrite and Vulcan was phenomenal. They were both excellent and they very clearly communicated things, made it very easy to understand. I was super engaged throughout the entire presentation. And the matches that we got were also really, really interesting. We had control mirrors, we had cleave versus turn 2, standard versus standard. There was a lot of stuff that was shown here in this actual invitational. It made me get really hype and excited to want to actually play the PvP aspect of the game. The fact that they also had two amazing sets of show matches also were very good. They had one where two teams of content creators went up against each other, and we got to see things like Gacha Smack play against Mr. Pokey, and I think that that was really, really cool, really, really awesome to see, because these are, personalities in the community, ones that I watch a lot, that I very much enjoy, and so to see that rivalry that they kind of have, that camaraderie that they have in their normal content be reflected there in the show, made it feel like it was a really cool get-together event, like it was something special to kick off what the promise of Etheria Restart could actually be. The second show match in particular, which I won't spoil everything about it, but it was a legendary show match between the winner of the Invitational, so essentially the Etheria Restart World Champion, and the current Summoners World Champion. And to see those two games collide, where they have overlapping skill sets, to see who is the stronger player, I think that was really, really awesome. And it ended with kind of a comment from the Summoners War player saying that the Etheria players have a bit more to learn. Kind of like, yo, you're my son, you're my little bro, stay in your lane, you have some stuff to learn, but I see great promise in you, great potential. That was the vibe that I got from that match. And I feel like that perfectly encapsulates how I feel about the EWS event and Etheria Restart in general. I think that this was a smashing success of an event, and it is a great promise for what Etheria can be. But right now, it's still got some work to do, right? It's still got some growing up to do, some catching up to do in order to get to this fun promise that was shown in the EWS Invitational. You see, this is a game with a really strong foundation. There's a lot of really fun and challenging PvE content in Etheria Restart. The problem is that all the marketing for the game suggests that it's a PvP Gacha, and unfortunately, I feel like a large portion of the community can't really engage with that portion of the game. It just simply takes way too long to get to. And I don't think this is some necessarily hot take that I have. When I talk to a lot of players and other content creators, they pretty much share the same sentiment here, right? And I feel like the devs have to be keenly aware that there's still a lot of work left to do. This game, in its current state, I think is a lot better than where it was 6 months ago. But now, 7 weeks after launch, I'm starting to see more and more flaws, and I think we need to start rolling out changes for those. And if not, that's pretty much a deal breaker here. So let me jump over here now to the actual game and just quickly talk about some of the problems that I'm currently having here with Etheria Restart. So I guess no better spot to start than the Animus progression in this game. So right now, being able to 6-star level 50 characters, I feel like for the most part is fine. If I had to complain about one thing, it's that these manuals that you use to level up characters, right? Like these things, the investigation records. These don't give nearly enough experience to level the characters. So you just kind of spend days or hours, or you're just waiting for like a 2x event to actually level stuff up. Being able to promote characters, I feel like that's at a reasonable time frame. So I have no complaints there. But I'm sure the number one thing that everyone complains about right now is the acquisition rate for perfect lattices. These simply take far too long to acquire in the current state of the game. Unless I'm mistaken, you get like 3 to 4 of these a week. So if you're a free-to-play player, the one that's in the summoning shop might not always be available to you unless you're actually actively always summoning. You can get 1 per week by playing Arena. And then there's like Union has the ability to get perfect lattice fragments, which this doesn't even give you enough to get an actual like full lattice. And then there are events that give more lattice fragments that show up. And then there's like quests. So right now, without having everything cleared, as long as there's still quests active, you're getting like 3, maybe 4 of these perfect lattices every single week. And that would equate to finishing a character once every like 3 weeks at the earliest, 4 weeks at the latest. So roughly about a month or so, give or take, to fully lattice out a SSR character that you want to play. Now, that might seem like it's okay, but then you remember that the devs, the community managers, said there's going to be a new SSR character every 3 weeks. So if it takes you 3 weeks as a free-to-play or casual player to lattice up an SSR that you want to play, and then a new one comes out, you will never actually make a headway, because for every one you finish, 1 more is being added to the pool. So you're never actually you're never progressing at a reasonable rate towards finishing your roster. There will always be, more characters that are coming out than you could possibly ever lattice at the current rate of acquisition. What we have here in this game for perfect lattices is better than launch Epic 7, because launch Epic 7 was like 75 Malagoras to fully skill a character, and you were only getting between 3 and 5 of those a week. So realistically, you were never, ever, ever under the original system maxing it out. But in the current state of Epic 7, you're getting like maybe 10 Malagoras a week, and it takes about 33 or so, give or take, to actually max out a character, if that is a character that you deem is worthy of fully maxing out. And there are other events that supplement that. But in reality, it's like 2 weeks, give or take, in that game to actually max out an SSR, which is perfectly fine because, again, characters come around like every 3 weeks or later, just like in this game. So you feel like you're actually on a long enough timeline. If you are a casual player, you can progress through the game. So I think as far as Animus progression, this is probably the number one thing that needs to get looked at. I'm not saying that the devs need to shower us with this stuff, but the current rate is just unacceptable. It needs to be like roughly like 20% higher than where it actually is right now, at least in my opinion. While we're on the topic of Animus, by the way, I think I probably should also highlight balance in the game. And that's probably not something I'm qualified 100% to speak on, because I pretty much don't have most of my characters like leveled and geared and ready to go for PvP. I basically just force the same comp in Arena and like Summit Arena every single week just to get the weekly rewards, and then I kind of bail. I don't actually intend to climb really high on the ladder until I actually get done what I need to get done. And that's like a byproduct of me being mostly like a casual player. I'm a pretty low spender in this game. I put probably only about $20 or so, give or take, into my actual account. You may notice that I have like the Lily and Claw skins. Those are pretty much, gifts that I got from being an official content creator for the game. But like for the most part, it's not a lot really invested in this account. And so I'm really feeling that strain, and I really don't feel compelled to want to actually push higher. So again, if you're a high ranked player, everything I'm going to say might sound like nonsense. It is based entirely on my observations from watching the EWS, from talking to other content creators and players who are higher ranked than me, and from 12 plus seasons of being a top 100 player in Epic 7, which is another PvP Gacha game that is very, very similar to Etheria Restart. So, general observations on the meta is that speed is a little bit too strong. And now that's pretty, cold take. Summoners War, Epic 7, these games, speed is usually king in them as well. Why would Etheria Restart not be any different? I 100% recognize that that's the case. But the thing about it is that there are so many fast supports and fast control characters in this game compared to the other archetypes, which is why I want to actually highlight it. So you have things like, you have a Lily here that can be built very fast. You have Mio, for example, Kazuo the Reverie. There are Obol is like a pretty strong control character. You have Kraken, right? Characters like Don't Own, like Doki Doki, for example. These are all characters that can be built very fast. Tsukiyomi here can be built as a really fast opener. So there's a lot of options if you want to go fast, right? If you want to go fast, you want to control your opponent, you want to cleave your opponent. But then start like thinking about the alternatives here, right? If you don't have the initiative in these games, the best thing for you to do is to tank down and weather the storm. And so our only real tank in the game is Tiamat, right? Because she has, I believe it's on her S1, she has damage share on Mother of Evolution. This is pretty much the tank passive in the actual game, right? So if you want to tank down, Tiamat is the thing. And pretty much every cleaver at the EWS, just pre-ban this thing, excuse me. And if pre-ban is like actually a thing at high ranks on ladder, every cleaver is just going to pre-ban Tiamat, because this is the only real tank in the entire game, the only thing that actually has damage share. Your next best option is something like Viper, who has critical hit resistance. Like, he gives like less damage taken on your team from critical hits. That's kind of like an off tank for the most part, but it's not like a true tank. And the other characters that people consider tanks, like Veronica, this character is good at shielding your team and giving them soul ward when she gets a turn. But if they just kill your whole team before you get a turn, she doesn't actually provide any tank value for your entire team. So I think that if you wanted to tank down, there should be a couple more comparable options to Tiamat. I'm not saying they have to be as good as Tiamat, but it would be nice to have another damage share character somewhere in the roster, so that way slow players and casual players feel like they have a chance where if they outskill you, they outstrategy you, which is what they were advertising the game as having during all the commercials during the EWS, and they even had a strategy show match. I think that that would go a long way. Similarly, cleansers. The only really strong cleanser right now, at least in my opinion, is Ling Luo, right? Because she has the cleanse on the S3 Perfect Soundwave. She gives immunity to your entire team, so that way it's not a repeat thing. She's the only really strong cleanser I feel like that we actually have, and thank goodness everyone gets the character for free, because that would be a total nightmare. Because if you look at some of the other characters that are here that can cleanse, right? So like Mia has cleanses, but she can't cleanse the important ones like sleep, like stun, like freeze. So that's kind of a bummer. And then the free-to-play cleanser that everybody has is Green Sonya. But unfortunately, as you can see here, if Sonya is able to take an action at the end of the turn, she heals 2 allies and purifies debuffs from them. So if you stun the Sonya, she doesn't really do much of anything. And now this one's less egregious, I feel like, than the tanks, because if you go and actually look at some of the gear that you can put on your characters, like you could get like Bloodbath, which gives as a set bonus some effect resistance, and there are definitely like modules that you can play as well that give effect resistance, and people clearly haven't built this stuff, and that is largely because of the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is modules. But yes, eventually people will be able to build those things. They'll be able to build their, if I scroll down here, like alicorns and stuff. These are things that people will be able to actually build and get around this. So maybe this isn't like a long-term problem so much as it is a short-term problem. But having like a new cleanser come out would be a huge boon to the game if it's super accessible, super easy to acquire, super easy to scale up. That would go, I think, a long way in helping out the PvP balance of stuff. And I guess the final one to talk about, the final thing as far as balance goes, it's like pretty much the elephant in the room that everybody acknowledged all weekend. It's Revelation, right? Like Revelation as a shell just feels super overtuned from what I've seen and from everybody I've talked to when it comes to PvP. Now, if you look at it here, it says that it deals indirect damage, real damage, that's true damage, equal to 12% of the target's max HP. Total damage per hit cannot exceed 180% of self-attack. So it does have a cap. So it's probably not as strong as people are suggesting it is. But if you watched EWS, Revelation is like a good chunk of the metagame. And it probably feels like it contributes to why this speed cleave control comp that people are playing is as strong as it is. So it probably should get looked at some point. The problem is that because it's so hard to progress in the current state of the game, if you got Revelation, it makes, you know, all of these Inferno runs that people have spent the last couple of weeks perfecting ridiculously hard to do. It makes a lot of these ridiculously hard to do. And if you're somebody like me who spent a good chunk of time farming Shadow Flame Hoyan, it makes farming all of these Revelations a lot worse. So I don't know what the fix is here. Revelation probably should get looked at, but if you are going to nerf it, it needs to either be PvP only in terms of nerf, which is a little bit confusing to keep track of, or they need to actually, hopefully, lower the difficulty on the module and shell drops, the Grim Pursuits and Thresholds of the game. And yes, I know they've already nerfed things like Inferno Nico Nana, they've nerfed Terramaton, they've nerfed Doki Doki Inferno, but these are like core baseline things that every new player needs to be able to clear in order to actually play the other parts of the game. For you to do things like AnySync, Ethernet Rally, Ember Trek Monthly, the various different events, and then just engage in general with all of the PvP portions of the game, that content, these two things, Grim Pursuit, Threshold, they need to be super easy. Because if they're not easy, then you get what was happening now. People are basically kind of walking away from the game because they feel like they can't actually progress. They feel stuck. They feel frustrated. They feel like the game is pay to win because the only ones that they can see that are clearing it are teams with like the Yelly or the Max Lattice character, and they just feel stuck and frustrated, and then they just kind of walk away. So that's kind of like the general feel, I feel like, of everything going into this. Now, on the subject of modules, right, I could just pick a random thing here, but if you look, I only have like 900k silver, which is not a lot, and I could burn through this very, very quickly, right? Like if I just pick, let me see if I can find like a three, like, so here, I have a 3-line piece, it's got speed, and I want to speed check this, right? Watch how fast my silver just evaporates from leveling one piece. Keep in mind, a character needs 6 pieces in order to actually use the gear, and it has to roll the right substats, which is RNG. So you're going to, on average, have to roll quite a number of pieces to be able to see at least one usable one for your characters, and every character needs 6 usable pieces, and your roster is like 40 plus animus deep that you could potentially play at this point, and it's going to grow by 1 to 3 every month based on release schedule. So yeah, it's going to require a lot. These games are always very grindy when it comes to gear, but it shouldn't be this difficult to actually roll stuff. So if I just roll this up, right? So we got speed, flat HP, flat HP. Normally I would have killed it there, but just for the video's sake. So I rolled this up, right? It cost me almost 700k silver, right? To actually roll this one piece of time weave gear. So now, and it's not even usable, right? I mean, it's like, I guess, okay, but it didn't roll high speed, which for my time weave set, I want high speed on it. So like this would probably just end up getting recycled, and I wouldn't get that much back for it. I'd probably get like maybe like 190k back. So going through that process repeatedly, like you can see how many time weave pieces, like how many like level 1 pieces I have. And this is after I literally threw away stuff. And this is just the one slot, right? If you have like, you look at your helmets, there's a bunch here too. You just don't get enough silver, Etheria coin in this game to actually properly check gear to see if you actually have pieces worth using in order to play on your characters for your PvE and your PvP. So I think that this is like one of the #1 issues to get addressed. I think the perfect lattice issue is probably #1, and then #2 here is the modules one. So to wrap it up, the last thing I want to talk about here is shells, right? Shells, I think, is the other thing that I really want to highlight that I'm not super thrilled with in the current state of the game. Now, granted, right? Well, that's a terrible spread, and I didn't even get the one I wanted to do here. I wanted to show off. But yeah, granted, they did do us a solid in the shells by introducing these, the Dream Boss. So these are replacing the yellow drops for a lot of the higher stuff, the higher tier things. So you don't have to be just cluttered with a ton of yellows. And you could sell these for a good amount of material. And they obviously nerfed Nico Nana Inferno, which was the entry point for shells. That Those things were amazing changes. They allowed people to actually climb into shell farming. And for that, I really, really thank them. It is super easy now, if you are dedicated, to actually take a shell, like just pick a random shell here, I guess, like one of these. I could level this up to 40, no problem, right? It's not going to break the bank for me to do so if I'm able to actually farm the stage. Awesome change by the devs. The issue comes in twofold. First off is reconfiguring, right? Let's say I want this right here, right? Go to Artisan real fast. Go to this Artisan. And let's say I try to empower this. And I'm looking for this, right? I only have a 7-speed Shadow Dash. And I want one of the red ones, which is like 17 to 20. It costs me 30K training data, but also reconfigured chips. So my leveling currency, my currency to actually level up my shells, is needed in addition to this other material. And the way you get this other material is through quests or to actually recycle your unused shells. So there's dream bars that we talked about. So I have to farm shells to get bars, to recycle, to get chips, to reconfigure. Why do I also have to give up my leveling currency? Why can't they just be independent of one another? Like, I've heard people say that the reason must be because if they made it not require training data, you would just, not have to farm shells ever again. Once you have everything leveled to level 40, then there would be no use for having these training data chips. That might be true, right? Like, once all of your stuff is max level, you'll have a ton of training data, you won't have anything to do with it. But I'm still limited by these reconfig chips. So I still have to farm shells no matter what, even if all of my shells are max level, because if I want to have materials to upgrade the passive effects, I still need these reconfig chips. It makes no sense that this is going to end up being 2 pieces of currency. And also, the passives in general are just a total crapshoot, right? So you can see here, I have like 17 on this Shadow Dash, and I'm pretty sure I have another one on here that's a red Shadow Dash here on this account, right? This is a 17, right? This is an 18. Like, why is there RNG? Considering there's so many possible, like, permutations of effects, right? There is going to be the blue speed, the yellow speed, the purple speed, the red speed, in addition to, the blue crit chance, the purple crit chance, the yellow crit chance, the red crit chance. Why is there also another layer of RNG in the speed range? It should just be homogenized, right? It should just be like, blues are 8, the next one's 12, next one's 16, red one's 20. And we just call it at that. It doesn't make any sense. One of the big problems with Epic 7, and to a lesser extent Summoner's War, is that they introduced so much RNG that it's dizzying to the casual player. And not appealing to the casual player, making the game not casual friendly, is, I think, inherently a bad thing for your game. I know the hardcore players like it hardcore. These kinds of gear grinder gachas are a bit more hardcore than, say, a Hoyoverse game. But I want to play a clip real fast from when I had Mr. Pokey on me and Tristan Wolf's podcast from a couple of months back, where he talked about how not having the game be casual friendly is one of the things that holds Epic 7 back from not being the best possible game that it could be, the most broadly appealing game that it could be, the most successful game that it possibly can be.
So like Epic 7 as a game itself compared to all these, like I would say like the newer gacha, the modern gacha games like HSR, Genshin, and Warring Waves. I feel like this game itself, it has so much depth that it potentially turns off a lot more people and like casuals. And I think casuals are probably like the biggest market. Doesn't have to be like free to play, but like even like whale casuals. But because this game has so much to do, they just don't have enough time to do it. It's like people want to like log in, spend like 5-10 minutes on the dailies, and end game they're just like it's very chill. Yeah. So I think like it's a little bit hard for this game to become mainstream, but I love this game so much because like I mean I do this for a living, right? So I can play this game like all day, every day. But like for people that actually want to get in, like for streamers it's so fun, and like for the community as well. But like for like the general consumer base, it's a little bit hard to. I would find it hard to imagine this would become a mainstream media game, which is. Yeah. So now the last thing that I want to wrap up here is still related to shells, and that is just the brutal difficulty of some of the stuff. Yes, it's great that you nerfed Nico Nana, and Hoyan's at least reasonably accessible, but like Sharon, I still have people on my Discord
telling me how brutal Sharon is, because like if you don't have certain characters, like you don't have Yelly, right, you're just kind of stuck. And you could use D-Ting, but the D-Ting teams use Lily. So if you don't have Yelly and Lily, it's kind of like really rough. Even you can see here, this one uses Doki Doki. That's an LD5. It's still a bit too difficult, I feel like, for a lot of people to actually engage with this. And me personally, I'm still stuck on Rengo because it's just a giant RNG fiesta and it's pretty unforgiving. If you look at the actual recent clears that are here, a lot of them are using things like Lily. And then you have ones like here. This is the common one that I've seen as people hail as the free-to-play team because you get Linglo for free. You get Vice. You get, there's Kloss, and then there's D-Ting. But I would argue that this one is not necessarily the most free-to-play friendly. Like this guy, I feel like good on him because this guy only has a 3 out of 5 D-Ting. But if you look at most of these other D-Tings, it's 5 out of 5 imprint, 5 out of 5 imprint. If I go over here, 5 out of 5 imprint, 5 out of 5 imprint. And that, I think, takes away from it, independent of the fact that most of these teams have Kloss. I have friends, like my good friend Crest, who is at the same spot. He can't clear it because he doesn't own Kloss. He's already used his selector, so until he gets Kloss, that team's inaccessible to him, so it's not necessarily free-to-play friendly. But the D-Ting thing, right? Prowess. That last prowess is 10% extra damage. If I am needing a max imprint 4-star in order to, like, clear this thing, which again is foundational content, I feel like that's a problem. We've already talked about this before, but like the imprint system in this game gives far more than I think people actually let on. Thankfully, it is a bit easier to get dupes in this game. There are ways to eventually acquire dupes, but yeah, spenders definitely just have a huge advantage because of the imprint system. So yeah, again, independent of all the other stuff we talked about here, I would love to see both Rengo and Sharon actually take a nerf, so that way the vast majority of the player base can actually clear stuff in a reasonable time frame, get the shells they need, and can actually start experiencing the other parts of the game. Because at the end of the day, that's pretty much what this whole video is about. There are a lot of good things still in this game. Like I said, most of this stuff here, from Road 2 and 3 downwards, Anti-Sync, Phantom Theater, Ember Trek, Ethernet Rally, and then the 2 events, like the Dreamscape event, this event's really fun. I've been having a lot of fun with this stuff. This is all great. It's just that everything in this top row is just so brutally difficult. The economy of the game is so unforgiving that people cannot meaningfully engage with a lot of this stuff on the higher difficulty. They don't get to experience it, and they just don't get to do a lot of this stuff here that's in Arena and Summon Arena, right? Or Fearless Arena. People will just kind of bang their heads against Fearless Arena weekend in, weekend out. I got people telling me they wake up at the crack of dawn to play Fearless Arena just because that's their only shot to actually win, to get some of the participation stuff, the quest for the week, because all of the whales just basically destroy them, or all the paid players destroy them, and they have no hope of competing because they only have 1 or 2 damage dealers, because that's all their resources allow them to build. And if like your opponent just takes your 1 damage dealer that you have built, you just don't get to play. You just have to top right, try again, get lucky. And that's a really frustrating feeling, I feel like, for many players to go through that. So anyways, those are my thoughts on the current state of Etheria restart, as well as how I felt about the EWS Invitational. Now I want to hear from you down in the comment section below. Let me know, did you watch the EWS Invitational? Did you like it? Did you hate it? Is there any things you think they could improve upon? Same thing here with Etheria restart. Are you still playing it? Are you still enjoying it? What kinds of things would you like to see? Let me know down in the comment section below, so that way I can forward it through the various different channels, and hopefully we can try to get some stuff moving, get the ball rolling, and make the game the best that it can possibly be. As always, enjoy the rest of your day, the rest of your week. I'll catch you in the next one. Later now.